Hello, and welcome back to the SimTech podcast, the podcast where we talk all things clinical simulation with the people who make it happen. In this episode, I'm joined by Jake from Simulation Collective, and we're chatting about his experiences at IMSH. We'll be digging into what stood out for him this year, from the sessions and the conversations that really landed, to the trends, techs, and ideas that get people talking on the exhibition floor. IMSH can be overwhelming, inspiring, and occasionally a bit noisy. So this episode is much about cutting through the noise and getting to the signal. So whether you made it to IMSH yourself, followed along from afar, or just curious about where simulation might be heading in the next year, this one is for you. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the SimTech podcast. Today we're doing, well, I'm not too sure what we're actually doing. I think we're just having a little bit of a catch up. But to help me do that, I brought along a regular, maybe a show favourite, and he definitely doesn't need much of an introduction, as you might be aware. He is normally surrounded by a cohort of people in stripy t-shirts. Jake, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, it's Jake Rahman here from Simulation Collective, and I'm glad to be back on your little podcast again and talking about simulation.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And we thought we'd just have a little bit of a catch up because I know you've been extremely busy with. Well, you've been away, haven't you? You've been overseas.
Yeah. So I've been overseas quite a bit recently, actually. So a couple of times we obviously went to Medica a while back and had a look around at the new medical technology there, and then came across to America, San Antonio for IMSH 2026 earlier this month, which was an interesting conference in many ways.
Yeah, and I think the last time we had you on, we was talking about inpatient sim. I mean, how's that going?
Yeah, I mean, inpatient sim is going really well. So we now have a number of users that are out there. Thanks, Craig. You're one of them. So we've got about 6 or 7 users that are actively using it at the moment. And considering that we only launched it, I think about 14 weeks ago, and it's been updated 3 times since then, with a commitment to update every 8 weeks. The platform is progressing, and since we spoke last about inpatient sim, it's important to note that all the pharmaceuticals are on there because I had to do that hard data myself and get all the pharmaceuticals on there with reference to the NICE guidelines as well. And there's a few other things that have gone on there, such as fluids. This is something that Craig, you brought up the last time we were on, and now it's possible to do fluid balance on there as well. And one of the cool things that's just appeared on there now, which we wrote the spec for just before Christmas, is the ward feature. So at the moment, you can have a 12-patient ward with 4 students looking after 3 patients each in any type of way. One student looking after 6 if you want, and the other split between the other 3. And so you can run a full ward system if you like, and you could do observations and keep the EPR updated in a ward situation as well. And there are lots of other things that are sort of appearing on there as time goes on, and it's been a really interesting. It's been a really interesting sort of exercise, really, from a feedback point of view, putting it out there. We recognise there are other simulated EPR systems out there, and it was quite funny because said, "Oh, it's just a copy of another EPR system." Well, actually, every EPR system is a copy of another EPR system because that's an EPR system. That's
Well,
what it
in
does.
that everything, you could say that about
It
everything,
just,
couldn't you, really?
it just, yeah, that's what it does. And this one's built for simulation, but essentially it does what an EPR system does. And maybe the guy at the very front of the queue that invented the first ever electronic patient record system, on a computer, might be a multi-billionaire or whatever. But ever since then, it's just something that's been replicated, and we've replicated it for simulation. But actually, it's turning into more than that, because we are going to be collaborating with a few other different companies to bring different other methods on there and different other functionality. And it's just going to grow and grow and grow. And I think it's really, really, really important. I mean, we've got to underscore this properly, that the improvements that have been made on it are not improvements that I've sort of organically come up with on my own. The initial specification, and there's something that, yes, okay, I wrote it down, but essentially everything else has happened through that little feedback tab within the software. So the 60 odd people that have trialed it out there have been giving us feedback from that tab, whether they're admin, users, or students. They've had access to that feedback tab. So it truly is turning into a community-led project that's developing, driven by you guys, the community, you people. You've done it, and I'm really proud of that. But I guess the difficulty is, from our point of view, there are difficulties in it, is making you guys realize that that's what we're going to do. We are going to improve it. We are going to develop it. And perhaps it's not something you're used to seeing in the simulation market or in the corporate world, things getting done quickly. But we've made a commitment to do that. The next commitment is going to be the language models, so it will go abroad. But we're doing it, and I'm really proud that we're doing it, and I really hope people can see that are using it so far, the improvements that we're making as we go along. And yeah.
One of the things that I thought about is that you've got all these people putting in their comments and their feedback. How do you go about making everybody happy? Because you must get conflicting information, and people wanting this, and then other people wanting the opposite, because you can catering to the masses.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. To be honest, a lot of the comments that we get are actually comments that are already happening on the system. They're already on there. People just haven't looked properly, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. They're just, there are a couple of light bulb moments when we point it out to people. Oh, it's already on there. Oh, yes, you can do that. Um, uh, some of them are things that basically, when we first started developing it, we decided that the bells and whistles would come later if people wanted the bells and whistles. Okay, and when we reached out to people, they said, no, we don't want any bells and whistles, because they saw the bells and whistles as an unnecessary expense. Okay, and therefore, they thought that would drive up the price. But as it's gone out there, people have started asking for the bells and whistles, such as the wards, more patients. Okay, that's the other thing that they've been asking for. But we've got a really, what I think is a clever answer for more patients. We know that obviously with AI, there is a cost in deriving AI. Okay, so the more patients you have, in theory, the higher the cost goes. But what we're asking people to do is, with their patients, publish them as public patients, and then hopefully across the whole network, there will be enough patients for everybody. And that is really, really the aim. And then the other things that people have asked for, we do sort of question them and give a little bit of, if you like, fight back on whether they really need certain things. And very often they don't. For instance, we've had quite a few American universities say, can we give a login to every single one of our students? And my question is, what are you going to do with that information? Why is that important for them to have a login for every single student? And as soon as we ask that question, then people kind of backtrack and sort of say, yeah, we don't really need, but it would be nice to have it. And so a lot of the requests that people bring in are things like that, which actually people don't really need, but are nice to have. And if we can do them, we're doing quickly. But initially, we're prioritizing the things that are, if you like, really important. So if somebody comes to us and says, "Oh, that's spelt wrong," or something like this, or that's not quite right, those are the things that we focus on changing first, and then we add functionality that people request afterwards. Um, I don't think there's anything that we won't do on it if people want it enough. That's the thing, and the commitment to doing a major update every 8 weeks is still out there, and so that's fast acceleration. So hopefully within 6 months or a year, then everybody will have everything they want on there, cost effectively.
Isn't there a chance if you're listening to American feedback that there's going to be, you know, at the end of it, you're going to have this beast that is, you know, people will question it, think, oh, it's an American application, and it'll put the trusts off, and it's going to sit be the same way. But people have seen, like, VR. I won't name them, but VR apps where the medication is American medication, for instance, and people, the heads just go straight down because they think, yeah, this isn't for me.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of brings me on to the IMSH thing, really, in a sense that the global market for simulation is very heavily Americanized. There's no doubt about that. But inpatient sim has sort of gone the other way because it was generated when it was first generated, and we use a few AI tools in there for the patients and things like that. It was some of the language was heavily Americanized, and we had to go backwards and make it more English or make it more international when it came to generating patients. Relevant to the names and countries that they come from and things like that. But essentially British patients. The key thing is when we go into the American market, there will be a US version specifically, and we've already decided that. When we go into the European markets, we've built into there, hopefully costing to change for language models for the European markets, and also protocol changes as well for the European markets. And that is absolutely what we needed to do to make it relevant to each country and in each area. When I went to IMSH, what what I saw was obviously the AI models out there. So the AI models, there's lots and lots of AI models now, literally from nothing to about 60 of them available across various different companies. And it's clearly most of them, the vast majority, are weighted towards the American market with American accents, American protocols, American this, American that. And we know that with AI, you can change that and you can localize it. It's a little bit of hard work to do it, to make sure because it learns from an accent point of view. But it was more than that, really, than just being Americanized. It's the fact that a lot of companies, and we've got to be careful with this, are simply putting AI features on to say that they've got AI. And as I walked around at IMSH, and we interviewed a lot of people with Simzine, that's my other hat, working with Simzine, it was quite clear that some of the features they'd put on their new products that were AI, even they didn't even know what was going to be the outcome for it for the student, or what it added to the process. And it became, a salesperson talking to a salesperson trying to sell a feature on something which, for me, was not necessary. So we've got to be really careful, as in with inpatient sim, um, you know, that we don't just put things on to products because we can. We don't just put things on to AI features onto things because we want to be part of the AI gold rush. It's got to be relevant for the faculty to help them create stuff or to do stuff and to teach, but especially relevant to the student, not just for the experience of having AI, but for their curriculum. And it's amazing how often you go up to a company at IMSH and say to them, mention the word curriculum. How does this fit into a curriculum of learning? How do you think it fits into there? And it's not like you're talking Chinese, American. It's like you're talking Chinese, and because they really haven't deeply thought about how they're going to practically use it to teach with.
Yeah,
Um,
I was wondering, like, do you think AI over the last few years, do you think it's maturing, or do you think the noise is just getting louder?
I think if it's clinically led, it matures. So what we've got in the simulation world is we have companies that are technology companies that want to create stuff. Okay, and sadly, um, a lot of these companies do not have medical directors. They're or people that have a real touch point into the clinical world properly, and that's when it becomes noise. It's really interesting. IMSH this year, and obviously I've been a number of years. There was much less AR and VR there, and it had sort of consolidated to a few companies who we probably know, okay, a few big companies, and if you walked around the sort of small stalls and the development areas and the startup companies, there was much, much less AR and VR applications. And I think that is going to be exactly what happens with AI.
Mm.
Um,
So I was on a national meeting earlier this week. Shout out to Richard and Chris. They showed me a slide, and if you saw that slide, 2 years ago, VR would have been at the top. So it's to do with learning and development and where their interests are, and
yeah,
VR would have been at the top. Now it's down to 2% interest, where AI is up to probably about 20% of the whole. And you're right,
wow.
there is this boom, and it's happened within what 2 or 3 years. And it's interesting. I mean, when you was walking around IMSH and looking at all these AI products, was there anything that stood out? Was there anything that was a little bit different, or is it all just from the generic barrel?
Yeah, I mean, there were about three things that stood out. Okay, in my opinion, there were three things that stood out. One of them is a company called Myra, which is actually an Icelandic company that's got a really good patient assessment tool. The guys behind it are gamers, are proper gaming developers, and proper geeks of AI and development. And what they've done is develop this patient assessment tool, doing formative assessments, patient assessments, which was a tabletop thing. Instead of having a mannequin, you would use this to do a patient assessment. And the way they developed it and the detail and the metrics that come from it were absolutely brilliant, the way it's been done. Okay. I saw a lot of AI on other tabletop stuff, anatomy, things like that, and it wasn't even close to what these guys do from Myra. I know that there are companies they're working with in the UK already, and they're available in the UK. I know also as well they are looking at putting their software on perhaps some anatomy tables that don't get used too much, and I think that's a really good business model. But what was really really interesting from their point of view is not only how they're developing stuff on AI, but also how they're using AI to develop as well. And I think the key companies that point out, well, it's not just about the AI that you see; it's the AI behind the scenes that's helping us develop the software. Because as we know, with AI chat engines at the moment, the next version of the AI chat engine is going to be developed by AI itself in a previous chat engine, and it's just going to go on like that and improve and improve and improve. So Myra were really, really good. Um, SimStation, they've got a little AI feature that they've added onto their software, and it's a really good piece of AI tracking within a clinical environment. And the, 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 the specific thing that they showed me was about a resuscitation scenario where they could get metrics back on the movement of people within there, the use of equipment, the CPR itself, everything. And the key most important thing for me with that is that they have some academic backing and are producing a paper from it. And this is what is missing in simulation overall. Yes, okay, there's lots of papers out there about soft skills, about communication, about everything. But the most important thing is to get some critical metrics back on actions taken within simulation, all combined with technical skills and communication skills and everything together. And that's really, really going to bring, some alignment, if you like, with the world that we're in, which is the medical world, the medical device world, the treatment of patients, which is all academically sort of studied and reported on. And it's kind of crossing that bridge. And then finally, there was a company for two medical students based up in Scotland, up in Dundee, and they've brought something to the market called MedAscend, which is again a formative assessment tool for patients, and where you actually speak to a patient, and instead of a jerky avatar that looks like what I'm talking about. And for me, a lot of the avatars out there, you could be playing Grand Theft Auto, or you could be, you could be
Yeah,
doing
I get it.
something.
'Cause, a lot of communication isn't just about the words they say, it's how
Yeah,
they say it and, the posture and stuff, and then
exactly.
you've got this avatar, and just 'cause their lips move when the words come out, doesn't really mean anything, does it?
Doesn't mean anything. And
Yeah.
these for Medicend, it's actually like talking to a real patient.
Mm.
And the language models are fantastic, in how you talk to them and the responses you can get. And I found it really good because I'm a long way unattached from the real medical world. It's a long time since I've done anything in anger in a hospital or worked in a hospital. But the communication to the patient with medicine was just absolutely fantastic. But it wasn't just about the things that it picked up on and the replies back to me. It was also the things that I got wrong and didn't ask the patient. So if you don't go through the normal sort of cues of when you're doing a patient assessment even simply getting a verbal confirmation of who it is. Could you please tell me your name, please, and et cetera, so we can identify people properly. It felt natural, and when I didn't do it,
Mm.
it was it was just, oh my god, yeah, I should have done that. Absolutely, because it felt like I was talking to a real patient rather than talking to an avatar that, like I said, could be Grand Theft
Yeah.
Auto.
What about the gap between the reply from you talking to them talking? Was it realistic, or 'cause sometimes it feels
Yep.
like, yeah, they're thinking, they're trying to come up with something before the answer, and it
Yeah,
becomes a little bit awkward.
there was no gap. and
No.
and what was interesting is so I'll tell you something. So a couple of years ago, when I was at IMSH, we did something where we needed Wi-Fi, and we were in Orlando, and we asked for a quote from the convention center, and we just wanted to be able to stream something, and they quoted us $15,500 for 3 days of Wi-Fi, right in the convention center. And so
Nice.
anyway, we went out and bought a box from a phone shop, right? Because we found out that in Orlando they've got the best 5G in pretty much in the whole of America. And the guy in the phone shop said, "Yeah, buy it from us, $80, and bring it back when you finish with it, and we'll refund you." And we did exactly that, and we had
Nice.
super fast Wi-Fi. But with Medicent, okay, they used it, and that was my first question to them. What Wi-Fi are you using? And they were using just the normal free convention center Wi-Fi, and it was super quick. But that is something people really need to think about if they're going to use AI, especially if you've got, you're going to have multiple AI systems. In other words, students doing formative assessments in different rooms with different AI, different avatars, etc., and things like that. People don't really understand the amount of bandwidth of Wi-Fi that's going to take. So if you haven't planned your Wi-Fi before you plan to buy one of these systems, you're going to be frustrated and disappointed. It works really well with Medicent, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to come up against some Wi-Fi barriers. And I would recommend is as well, if you're going to do that. I know it's the wrong thing to do from an IT point of view, and probably every NHS and university will put a target on my head when I say this, is test your 5G locally and buy yourself a 5G box if you're going to do that, to keep off the network, because it's going to take up a lot of bandwidth on the network. They will spot it, they will pick it up. IT will get in the way with firewalls and things like that. If you can find somewhere around it, if you're going to use AI, get yourself a 5G box and do that way.
When you're talking about AI patients and, well, AI in general, I always worry about the source material, where it's drawing upon to get its information.
Mm.
And then something in the back of my head is it's always saying about regulation and, where do you come in on that? I mean, with AI, I'd like to think that it's not open AI where
Yeah.
most of this things get in it because, it's a dirty liar, isn't it? It just grabs all information and just makes it up. I believe that most of the AI companies now they're closed, and it's kind of specialist led. So all the data that's put into it is put in by a professional. Do you agree on that kind of concept?
Yeah, I think the problem people have got to recognise is it's just like anything, um, you, you know, any factory or anything or any computer or anything. If you're putting crap in, you're going to get crap out.
Mm.
To be frank, that's it. You are, you know, if the information that's going in is bad, the information you're going to get out is bad. So it's really, really important, no matter what AI engine you're using, is to ask AI the correct questions in the first place to produce the correct data that you want. And we found this when we were looking at the AI patients within inpatient sim. So what we found out is really sort of nuanced, stupid things that everybody was a retired engineer. First of all, once you got over a certain age, AI just sort of it defaulted into everybody being retired engineer if you're male and a retired teacher if you're female. And so you have to put some really nuanced information into how it generates and tell it to take it from a broad spectrum of people if you're developing people. But when it comes to the correct guidelines and the correct, correct clinical output, okay, you do need to, for instance, what I found with the pharmaceuticals was make sure that they were referenced to the BNF and the NICE guidelines. Otherwise, what it does, what AI tends to do, is they will then pick up random drug dosages from the US or from some part of the world where somebody had created that data in the first place, and unless you're specific about where you're drawing that data from or where you want that AI to draw that data from, it's just going to come up with lots of rubbish that's not relevant to people. And yeah, it does require a human being to create a good AI system. And although AI will create AI in the future, um, the vast body of it to make it to be able to do that will be from human interaction first of all. So as long as we keep that human interaction to do that quality control and that checking, and that's why we got the feedback box on an inpatient sim, it's going to, it should hopefully learn and get better and better and better and better. But I think we've also got to remember as well, there are a number of AI companies out there. Really, there's about 4 AI companies that are going to win this battle. And if I look at that 60 sort of companies in IMSH, they're pretty much all of them working off those 4 AI companies. Now, we've got to be really cautious about this because at some point, they're going to monetize it in a really big way. Okay. So you're going to have obviously your metas, your chat GPTs, etc. They will end up grossly monetizing this. In America at the moment, the conversations when I was out there is about the AI data centers that are being created in the desert. I mean, these are massive data centers, little towns that are just being created for AI. And I don't think people realize the amount of energy it takes to create that data and to crunch that data. And there can only be, it's not quite like Highlander. There might be two, okay, but there can only be one or two that are going to have enough money to create these monster machines that are going to crunch the data for AI engines. So we've got to be really cautious in the future because at some point they're going to say, "Oh, we're going to put up the costs," and it's almost like Thames Water in the UK. they can put up the costs whenever they want, and because they've got a captive audience. So the other fear for AI is if we do all become dependent on it for healthcare education, then actually it's not going to be you that's going to be in control of it, Craig. Ultimately, it's going to be the big AI multi-trillion-dollar company out there that's deriving it all for you, and that's a bit frightening in my.
Yeah. I mean, that's even before we worry about, World War III and what all these other things could bring into it. But you're right, you kind of echo everyone else's concerns, but we're still well, you still look like you're embracing AI and it hasn't put you off too much. I mean, there's no getting away from it now. We've kind of opened up Pandora's box, as it were. Um,
Yeah.
we either ride the train now or like you say, we can't put it back in, can we?
Well, I mean, but that was the thing, and I'd like to hear other people's comments about IMSH as well, and the AI gold rush that's happening there. A year ago, it wasn't there. In this has all happened in a year. Um, uh, if there's 60 people there with AI this year, is there going to be 120 next year, or would have already broken by that point and start reducing? That's ultimately what we don't know because if somebody can create something with AI, it's amazing and compelling, etc. There can be no IP on AI.
No.
You know, that's going to be impossible. So if you the thing to look out for when people are purchasing AI products or AI features is the company that they're purchasing it from. I think it's up to them to be compelled to make sure that you understand that they're going to keep on developing that AI. Because if you don't, you could buy something, it could be obsolete in 2 weeks because somebody's done something bigger and better. Or somebody could say, we've developed something absolutely unique. And because there's no IP in AI, not really, somebody will be able to copy it in a matter of hours or days or seconds, probably at some point, and it'll be a total waste of money or a totally different price. So that's why it's going to be so difficult to monitor. I think it's going to be really, really hard for buyers to buy the right thing in AI. I do. That's the challenge.
Mm.
Yeah.
How how does IMSH compare to, say, ASPE? Because not many people would have had the opportunity to go over to watch it, but I suspect lots of listeners have been to ASPE. Is it similar or is it different scale?
Massive. Yeah. I mean, well, no, I don't think any healthcare simulation conference is massive compared to a medical conference, but it's a massive hall full of vendors. A lot of the time, sort of distributors and partners fly in from all around the world because it's a good chance for everybody to meet. It's big. It's actually, I don't care what anybody says, and the guys from IMSH, will probably be upset at this, but it's smaller than last year. Definitely, it felt smaller. We know what's going on in America. There were definitely less foreign visitors. The people that I normally run into on these events didn't make that trip over, and I think the reason for that is quite obvious. I only decided to go probably about 3 or 4 weeks beforehand. I wasn't really happy about my Ester form filling in my social media. But yeah, it's a massive animal. It's a great place for people to meet. I think it's quite similar to Aspie, but Aspie is a lot more family. It feels more family
Mm.
orientated with regards to it's a smaller family. Everybody to each other. Um, uh, you know, yeah, I really enjoy Aspie a lot more if I'm really honest, because it just feels nicer. It feels like home. IMSH though does sort of you do get some really cool products occasionally. Tiny small companies that have come from Chile or from from Azerbaijan or wherever from around the world, and that's the type of thing that you won't get in Aspie. But having said that, um, because of the way our markets work in healthcare simulation, these little small companies don't very often get a look in anyway. So ultimately, you could spend as a small company going to IMSH $20,000, to have a bit of a booth there, put on a bit of a show, but ultimately, because people are kind of addicted to corporates in this market, um, it doesn't go anywhere, and that's a real shame, because that's kind of what's stifling and stopping innovation really in the healthcare simulation market, is because people won't give small companies a go. They won't just take a chance, and if they do take a chance, I think it's really important to note that you know from a scale point of view, okay, if you buy something from a small company, you're going to have direct contact with the engineers, the developers, the CEO. If they've got a sales guy, you're going to have direct contact with them, and it's within their interests to make your experience with them really, really successful. If you deal with a large corporate company that has, I don't know, 10,000 simulators out there, okay? And they might have 3 or 4 engineers to look after the whole lot. You've got to look at actually the falsehood that a large corporate is going to look after you better than a small company, and that's the problem that I think people, the buyers of healthcare simulation, when they go to these conferences, they need to think about that. They need to understand that if they take a chance on a small company, their experience might be a heck of a lot better.
Mm. I mean, you sound like you've been pretty busy over the last, well, couple of months.
Yeah.
How's the whole team feeling? Worn out yet?
Yeah, everybody's tired. We're only a small team. Last week I was in Huddersfield. Hopefully you might have seen it online, but we installed the first MRI simulator in the UK up there. So a full-size MRI simulator that acts and moves and does everything like a real MRI does, except take real images. And that was with our partners, Psychology Software Tools, who are based in Pittsburgh in the US. The guy from Pittsburgh came across, and I took him to see Southampton versus Sheffield United. And he's never been to a football match before. And we were in the northern stand, and that guy went back, and he learned how to swear properly. It was amazing. So, and it's but yeah. So what we're trying to do is again what we were talking about before is spread the word of simulation overall and be evangelically spread the word that healthcare simulation doesn't just mean mannequins. It means it can be anything. It can be MRI, learning, doing scenarios in the MRI unit. If you've ever had to do a crash call in the MRI unit, you'll know the problems that it causes, especially if somebody's actually in the MRI. Okay. Fortunately, I never went to a real crash call, but I used to have to rehearse crash calls every month when I was working with Bupa. I had the bleep, and it's a completely different world. And what it also means as well, for instance, with inpatient sim, um, we're looking to get radiology involved. So actually, radiology students can use can use inpatient sim, and they can send images over. They can do write-ups on them. They can do measurements on them and things like that. And the idea really is to try and get everybody in healthcare involved in simulation, and not just your, if you like, your normal your usual suspects. Because if we're going to make this market grow, we've got to bring in all allied healthcare to healthcare simulation. And I think that's really, from an IMSH point of view and also from an ASPE point of view, where I've spoken to them about it a few times, and also SESAM as well. Um, they need to start thinking about how they're going to draw in surgical simulation, how they're going to draw in ultrasound simulation, you know, other types of simulation and into these conferences, and put something on the program for them. Because when you've got surgical simulators, for instance, you don't really know where to go, from a conference point of view. Where do you fit in? You're sort of in no man's land. You are simulation. In fact, you're the most classic type of simulation there is, really. But where do you fit in to reach your audience? And there's not many places to fit in. And that's the way to sort of spread IMSH, spread SESAM and ASPE, is to bring in all types of simulation, invite surgical people there, from a training point of view, invite ultrasound people there who, when I was doing ultrasound simulation, it was like tiny little courses you used to go to in darkened hotels and things like that. And that should really be part of IMSH. Also, as well, BLS. Why is that not a part of IMSH? This is the most basic form of simulation there is, and yet there's no space really for resuscitation, because resuscitation you use simulation too. And if I could be critical of all the conferences out there, that's the problem. They haven't been able to bring in clinical skills. Normal clinical. People turn up with task trainers. Okay, so where's your IV training sessions so people can read certificate? For these type of skills, and it, that's how you're going to grow simulation, by bringing in everybody, clinical skills, surgical, everybody all together.
Yeah, I mean, well, it'll be no surprise to you, but definitely within the trust, there's not as much money as there used to be. And I'm wondering if, maybe IMSH over in America, they're also feeling a little bit of the pinch, and maybe things are quieting down a little bit on that kind of front.
Yeah, I mean, I look. Um, there's like a lot of bravado in the business world, in healthcare simulation or whatever. So if I went up and said to, let's pick a name out of a hat. If I went up and said to, I'll mention it, a name, Tor Brunner at Lairdale, so the head of sales at Lairdale, I went up to him and said, Tor, how's your year been? You know, he would make up a glorious story that it's been a fantastic year and everything's going well. So if I said that to any of the vendors around, the big vendors around there, they would actually say the same thing. But we know that you guys have struggled. I mean, it's been a terrible year for universities. It's been a terrible year for healthcare funding and overall buying equipment, anything. And we see it on both sides because we sell clinical products as well. And it's important to sort of acknowledge at this point, from a business point of view, we understand that, we can see that. It's important for us to make sure that there are lower cost solutions, that you can take advantage of, or things that will help enhance the things that you have already. For instance, we've got the Eminent overlays that we work with Raul Rodriguez, and they update a mannequin that may look old and tired and doesn't represent real people, for a low cost. And it's also important to note as well patient simulators, they haven't changed really for 20 years, the functionality. So do they really need to be replaced if they work? So is yeah, it's acknowledging it's a bad year for everybody, whether you're in healthcare simulation as a company or whether you are as a provider trying to make ends meet and deliver education. It's been awful, and I hope things improve soon.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's made well, it's definitely made me, and I say we, the royal we, as the simulation community, it's made us think a little bit more outside the box. And most people will say that simulation isn't a technology; it's a technique. Obviously, talking to a supplier here, these are probably not the words you want to hear, but it's an ethos, and people are starting. Well, I know we step away from using mannequins anyway because we prefer, SPs. We prefer actors most of the time.
Mm.
But what we're seeing is actually all these little pieces of technology, these little stethoscopes where you can actually hear sounds and stuff that are enabling us to use patients, real actors, more than mannequins because you know it's a really hard sell getting £80,000 for a new mannequin these times. It's hopefully, like you said, the handcuffs will come off at some point, but maybe this is a pattern. Maybe it's going to be a few years. Maybe this is just it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we've got to be also as well, and is not something that we want to hear that there's not enough, there's no money available or things are getting tighter and tighter. But I embrace that, to be quite honest, because I didn't come into this business to become a multimillionaire. If I if I wanted to earn more money, I would go and work for a large corporate. I earned my wage that I take home now, running a small company, is a third of what I used to take home when I worked for a large corporate. Okay, and that is because it's not just about that. It's not just about making money. Okay, it's about delivering back to the NHS, making sure that you've got the right equipment, and the outcomes are right for the student. But notably, for me, from a personal point of view, is noting that's where I got my career from. And if it wasn't for our amazing NHS, and the public service that's all behind it, okay, I would have never have got a job. I would have never, probably I'd be doing, I'm sat in a record shop here in my background here. I might be working in a record shop or something like that, but certainly I wouldn't have the career that I have. And that's kind of why I do it. So other vendors, when you've got massive overheads. So if you think about a typical large company that might have 7, 8 salespeople on the ground, okay, a big office, lots of people in the warehouse, things like that. Uh, you know, the providers of simulation and the customers need to also appreciate on the other hand, their massive overheads. So what a bad year means for these companies is actually making people redundant, people losing their jobs, um, uh, um, uh, you know, uh, real hardship for people, and that's at the other end of the scale. And as much as I would, uh, uh, you know, love to sort of deliver as much as I can to the NHS at a lower price, we do also need to make a living, and we also need to recognise that when I was working in the NHS, it was much safer for me from a career point of view, as long as I didn't kill anybody, than it is in the commercial world at the moment. The commercial world is a pretty cutthroat place, because of the way things go. But also, you mentioned other things that are coming in to make your life easier, that are lower cost, perhaps. Keep a note. You said lower cost. Okay, Craig, look at this deeply. Okay, try and work out how much it costs to make something. And some things these days are quite low cost to make. So you might think it's a low cost thing that you're buying, but actually the price has been inflated quite a lot. And conversely, there might be something out there from a small company or another company which seems really, really high cost, but their overheads are super high because of the development anyway. I can give you a quick example. Working with Heartworks years and years ago, It was a UCLH project, UCLH charity. They lent £1 million to create this amazing device, and it's still the best simulation product that I've ever worked with, the HeartWorks device. Okay, but the problem is, from a global sense, you only sold about 20 of those a year. So to keep, 4 salespeople on the road, to keep an office, to keep the development going, something that looks, like it might cost about £20,000 costs about £120,000, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get it around. And that's the problem that we have, because it's such a small, bespoke, niche market that we're working in, which is healthcare simulation, um, which is a tiny blip from a financial point of view on the rest of healthcare. It's tiny, it's minuscule. The G healthcare makes about £5 billion a year. Okay, the average company makes, or large company has around about a 15% marketing budget, out for every £100 that they make. And so you're up against companies that literally do have £1 billion marketing budget, and you're a tiny little simulation company. You know, yeah, hard work.
Where are you going next then? So you've been to America. What's on your agenda for this year?
Well, I think we're going to be going to SESAM. I'm going to be doing some more work with Simzine. We'll be going to SESAM. We're going to be interviewing more people in industry as well. So there'll be a few podcasts out with some key people in an industry. I have a bit of a unusual position where people will talk to me, even though they know I've got my own company and etc. So we're going to be doing a bit of that. Yes, of course, we will go to ASPE later on in the year. Of course, excited for that. But really, what I would like people to do is invite me up to go and see them. Obviously, we've got people reaching out to people, so we can talk about what we do. We've got a couple of developments going on in the background. One of them I can't talk about. In fact, both of them I can't talk about at the moment. But there's a couple of the developments that are out there that we have just put proposals out there for, that are going to happen. And of course, they're going to be original stuff, just like we always do. Make something that's original, and between the lines in the healthcare simulation. So yeah, we're going to be everywhere. As a company as well, we've got our clinical side. So we're going to have some very big news about one of our clinical products soon, which is going to be much more available to people. Cannula Light, who we work with, we've got the Cannula Light, a simulated version now for simulation, which is an IV aid, so confirming that you're in the vein if you're doing venous cannulation. That's just going through FDA and CE approval, but we're doing a lot of work at the moment with the military on that. So we're up and down. There's something called J Hub, which are the military innovation people, and I seem to be sat in their office quite a lot, showing them things. And so Cannulite has just been trialed with the US Marine Corps. A really nice paper is going to come out about it, both for simulation and for clinical use. And we are going to be selling it all around the world, hopefully, or helping to sell it all around the world. And we do have an AI system that we're going to be partnering with, and I can't talk about that at the moment. And it's one of the ones that I thought really worked well and really gave something back to the students rather than the noise that was out there. So I'm excited that we are going to be involved in a bit of direct AI, or AI products. But yeah, that's where we're at. Hopefully, as a company, we're going to expand. My idea is to, throughout the year, employ more people. I'm afraid that if we employ salespeople, they are going to be clinical people. Okay, that's always been my desire and wish, because I think it's really important that to selling to people like you, it should be people that understand what you're talking about, and not are just trained to look like they understand what you're talking about, if you know what I mean. There's a very different thing, you know. So so yeah, hopefully, if the funding's there, we will expand as a company. We've got Alex Hepner that works with us occasionally. That does a bit of our social media. He does something called Group Call, and our social media is going wild. We've got a new YouTube channel. So you go to Simulation Collective YouTube channel.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw that.
it, yeah, it's good. There's lots of videos appearing on there at the moment, and we're also going to develop, a Sim Academy, where we have lots of educational stuff on there. Some stuff that's going to help people, do simulation better, repair things better, do moulage better, all that sort of stuff. I'm really, really keen to get involved in that, and make sure that we've got some online resources for that as well. So yeah, it's non-stop really. And if people have been to our website, you'll see that our product portfolio has grown. It's going to grow again. And also as well, there's going to be some co-developed stuff on there as well, which I'm really excited about, because I'm kind of fed up with giving ideas away to people, and 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 not have my name on it, and so we're going to make sure that the Simulation Collective name is on things as things go forward. Yeah,
And I also understand you've sponsoring the Outstanding Contribution Award for the SimTech Awards.
I am. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we'll see you in Manchester if you can get away to come up and spend the day.
yeah.
I mean, you're like you say, you're a busy man. So I much appreciate you coming over and talking to us today. Just we'll sign off with one last thing. Where do you think Inpatient Sim will be in 12 months?
I think it'd be a domesticated product where people would just have it at home for the heck of it in
Mm,
their front room.
yeah.
No, no. The aim will be the aim. Yeah, I mean, look. The the key thing is to remember. All right, with Inpatient Sim, there is no gimmick here. Okay, it is an affordable product for the price that I think and the team at MXR, think is of value to people. Okay, we put it at a really, really low price, and that price will go up slightly, on March 31st, because we have to. Okay, we put it at a really, really low price to make it accessible for all of you in a simulation. Okay, and but the way we've done that um, is by trying to make you guys think about differently about the way you buy things. It's all very well, all of us having these websites, Amazon style websites, where all the products are listed on there and everything like that. But unless you buy it like you would Amazon or software, by reaching out and engaging with companies like us and asking the questions, we're not going to be able to keep the prices down of these things. And that's the problem that we have in this market. That domestically, when you go and buy a bit of software, okay, and I buy music software and things like that, I don't go to a shop to buy that software. I don't expect the salesman to call. I will research that software, and then I will contact the people and buy it, or it's just a simple download. But when we go into the medical simulation world, the expectancy is that somebody comes in a branded uniform and sells you something for an inflated price, because that's the expectancy of the way sales works in medical simulation. If you can change the mindset, you're going to end up with better products that are cheaper, especially the software ones. Okay. Um, yeah.
Are you doing any free trials for it? Are you letting people have a little go before they buy it?
30-day free trial. Anybody can do a 30-day free trial, unlimited, to its functionality, pretty much. Okay, 30-day free trial for Inpatient Sim, available now, and all you have to do is email me, Jake at Simulation Collective, or Hello Hester, our robot, who's not really a robot, by the way. Hello Hester at simulationcollective.com, D Davy that is, and we will set you up with a free trial. My colleague Duncan is able to do that, and you'll get 30 days to play around with it. and use it as you will.
Do they get to give you feedback over their 30-day update?
Yes,
Yeah, so they can
everybody
still
gives us feedback.
contribute.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jake. It's been great speaking with you today. It's been great to having in a little bit of a catch up. I will definitely see you at Aspie if I don't see you at Manchester.
I'll come and see you at Manchester. All right.
All right. All
Yeah.
right.
You take it easy. Take care. Bye bye.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of the SimTech podcast. Huge thanks to Jake from Simulation Collective for taking the time and sharing his reflections at IMSH and the highlights, the noise, and the conversation that really mattered. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future chats with simulation enthusiasts, techs, educators, and innovators from across the community. As always, if there's a topic you want us to cover or something you should be talking about, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the SimTech podcast.